love and coffee and tea. Now pull up and see. How do you rate yours? Welcome to coffee and tea. Have a sip. Welcome to coffee and tea. Cream and sugar. Welcome to coffee and tea.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Friday night session here at Coffee and Tea. I am your dynamic host. It's me, it's Chris. I hope you guys are doing well on this very rainy Friday night. It is an amazing night, though. So, the reason why I say that is because it's the first day of spring. So, happy spring to everybody. Hopefully, that means we won't have any more snow because I don't want no more. But March is not the month to get attitude about snow because in Maryland, you can still get snow in March. Not fun at all, but we are happy and we are positive about the snow. It's currently raining right now if you're watching somewhere else outside of Maryland, but we love the rain. Rain washes things away and it's super good stuff. So let me know that you're out there. Let me know where you're watching from. All of my YouTube friends, all of my Facebook friends. So happy that you could join me this evening. Yes, this is going to be not weird, but this is kind of the lane that I'm very accustomed to being in because this is just going to be a conversation with me and you. I don't have any guests this evening. And if I'm honest, I really didn't expect any. And the reason I didn't expect any is because of the topic of the show. And the topic of the show tonight is faith fatigue actually something that's real? We talk a lot about, like church hurt and, all of these types of things that come along with being like a part of the church as a whole, the church organization. I don't know how y'all really want to say it, but we go through a lot of stuff in any level of faith-based anything. So it's not just the church. It's really any faith-based place that you go or any faith-based organization that you belong to, that you can get some level of faith fatigue. We talk about the church because that's where we are. We are in the church. So that's where we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about and even admit to some spaces and some places where one could consider faith exhausting. And the reason why I'm talking about it is because I want to talk about why you can be or have faith fatigue, but that not equate to losing faith or losing your faith in God, or doesn't mean that you don't have any faith. And we're going to go through some examples, of that this evening. But I want to say hey to my friends. So, hey there, Kevin. How are you? And my very first guest from season 3 this year. Hey, Sean. Thank you guys for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. So, we're going to talk about and we're going to set the rules, for the show tonight. Though it's just me, the same 3 rules apply that we saw on the first show. So the first rule is no rushing to conclusion. So I have a tendency, even in my own self, to jump the gun. And I really was talking about this in my therapy session today about incremental steps versus like jumping straight to the end goal. So even in this conversation, I don't want to rush towards any conclusions. Like, I really might be rocking some people's faith here this evening, and I don't really want to rush to the end or get to the end too quickly, because there's some process and stuff that we have to go through. There's some conversation that we need to have. The second rule is that I don't have or will not put any pressure on myself to end on a high note. What that means is it doesn't have to be all wrapped in tightly neat and in a bow and in a box. At the end of this conversation, and the whole point of us really having this conversation is to be able to identify some spaces where we like need to tune the screws or fine tune some things, or even admit out loud to ourselves, and even in some spaces admit to God where we are falling. And I don't mean that in a space of we're doing anything bad, but just, Lord, like, I need some help, I'm tired. That kind of space. Rule number 3, especially today, silence is allowed. I don't have no other guests. So it might take me a minute to gather my thought. It may take me a second to make sure that I word what I'm going to say correctly, because if you've ever heard me preach at all, at the end of the day, I never want to have somebody do something incorrectly based on something that I said. So it may come to my mind where like, oh, this is how I could say it, but it may not be the right way to say it. So if I pause or I take a minute, your screen is not glitching, there's nothing wrong with the internet connection. I'm really just trying to make sure that my words are accurate in what it is that I'm saying. And there may come a step, rule number 4, where you may ask a question and I really don't have the answer. And I really don't have a problem with saying, I don't know, or I don't know now. But I promise you, if I say I don't know, or I don't know right now, I promise you I'm going to come back to you with an answer. Some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight are just things that I've experienced in my own life. So there is a level of wisdom. Like, I'm not 20 anymore. I'm not even 30 anymore. I know some of you believe that I'm in my 30s, but that's not accurate. And in that comes a level of wisdom, but I don't know it all. There are people that I cling to, folks that I know, individuals that I absolutely adore and have built some relationships with, and they are a little bit more wiser than I am. Somebody told me one time that if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to change rooms. So I may not have all of the answers. So if I say I don't know or I don't know yet, trust and believe I'm going to get back to you. Hey, Courtney. Hey, Viva. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate y'all so much. So let's go ahead and just jump into this first segment. So the first segment is, what does faith fatigue, or what faith fatigue actually looks like, right? So I'm going to ask you this question real quick, and I'd love to see you guys tell me in the comments. So my question to you is, have you ever felt spiritually tired? And while you guys are answering, I'm going to answer the question myself. And there was a period of time when, and my pastor gets on me a lot about this, and if he's watching, I hear him most of the time when he say it, not all the time. But there was a point where I was putting a lot of how I was feeling on Facebook. And I still do from time to time, because sometimes it's lethargic for me. Not necessarily I want people to answer, but sometimes I just got to get it out, and social media is where I go to get it out. But there was a point where I asked a question because I just felt that way. Like, I felt like I literally was in a desert. Like, my faith felt like it was in the dry place. And I had to question whether or not I was losing faith, or if what I was waiting for, I was getting tired of waiting. And I think that was the space that I had to kind of like check myself, and even, have some very uncomfortable conversations with the Lord, because I was tired. like tired. Listen to me, okay? So some of you out there may be like, yeah, Chris, some of y'all not gonna put it in the comments, and I get it. Like, again, I know this is going to be an uncomfortable conversation and may not be a whole lot of talking and stuff in the comments, but we're gonna get through it, right? So some of you may say, yes, Chris, I absolutely have felt that way. Thanks, Sean, for responding. Some of you are like, Chris, I am beyond yes. Like, absolutely, I have felt like spiritually tired. Some of you may be like, Chris, I am there right this second, right this moment. And then some people might be like, well, I don't really understand it. And all of those are okay at this point. So let's talk about what faith fatigue actually looks like. And it can be a space where you have been praying for something, but you feel emotionally drained in that space. It can be that you're showing up to church, but you have mentally checked out. Some of us like are leaders, and we do a lot of stuff at our churches, and we do the check-in, but then you check out mentally. Like, you're so encompassed in doing all of the things that you're not really there for the thing that you need the most, right? So that can kind of tire you out a little bit. It can be believing that God can, but struggling to believe if he will. And that's one of the spaces that I have struggled with in a lot of places, in my life. If you remember, or if you've ever watched the show that I did on my infertility journey, when I talked about hope on hold. And I just talked about how I believe God can do it, but that at this stage in my life, I wondered if he will do it. And it has nothing to say that I don't have the faith to believe that he can, because I have tangible evidence in my life that God has done some great things. Some of them have been super miraculous, healing powers and all of this stuff. Jehovah Jireh providing left and right and all these types of things. But there are spaces and moments where, I'm like, God, I know you can, but my question is, will you? Thank you, Courtney. Hey, Quashana, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. So, faith fatigue, I want you to understand, is not a faith failure. You're not saying that you don't believe, but what you are saying is that even in the belief, like, Lord, I'm running out of steam, or I'm running out of fuel, right? So let's y'all know, if you follow my Lazarus movement stuff, I don't come with nothing without no scripture, right? So 2 Corinthians 4:8-9 talks about we are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, right? So this is about tension. It's not about pressure. It's about tension. So here's the example, right? And it's broken, but y'all will get the picture. So when it comes to a rubber band, right? The rubber band, when it's whole, you can stretch it. And how you stretch it is the tension that comes into the rubber band, right? So I use a lot of these at work. Oh, good. I got a whole one right here on my microphone. So I use a lot of these at work because I use a lot of folders. So sometimes the folders have stuff that I can't punch holes in because they're legal documents. So I have to put a rubber band around it because I need for the papers not to fall out. So the rubber band, when it's on the folder, it creates a level of tension so that it keeps whatever's inside of the rubber band inside the rubber band, so it don't fall out of the folder, right? So when you stretch the rubber band, that's creating tension in the rubber band. And sometimes in the waiting process, we get this tension, but then because we aren't doing our part, or it's been, a really long time, like, that tension starts to fade a little bit because we're still holding on to the belief that God can, right? And then some of us get to the point where we feel like we have waited long enough, and then the rubber band snaps, and then we have moved on, or felt like God has pushed us on, or we have just given up in that moment. And what I want us to recognize even in this is you can be pressed and you can still have that tension and not fall apart, right? So I said that I was gonna talk about myself a lot because that's the only example I got outside of some biblical ones. Um, when it came to this space, this health challenge that I was in just recently, like I had said across the pulpit that in this space, it's a part of my body that has always, in my opinion, failed me. It's the part of my body that has always given me the most trouble. It's the part of my body that really gets on my nerves sometimes because it has denied me the thing that I've wanted the most, at least in the way that I have wanted it. Let me put it that way. So having a diagnosis that would end something that I really wanted in life was some serious tension. And praying for a very long time about wanting to have a family and wanting to physically give birth to a child, and to have this diagnosis now try to cripple that and extinguish that for me. Like I was in a space where I was faith fatigued. But even though I was tired, there still was faith, there still was faithfulness in it. Like talking to God and telling God, look, man, like I am hanging on by a thread, sir. Like I don't know what else to do. I don't know where else to go. It don't make sense to me. So the only place I can put it is here. And even though I'm still trying to remain faithful, like I am exhausted in this in this space. Like I can't believe I'm going through something else in this space yet again. And that's the juxtaposition about faith fatigue. Like you have the ability to believe, but you get to a point where you're just really tired. So let's give us a biblical example in this, right? Let's talk about Elijah. So remember, there's Elijah and then Elisha. So we're talking about Elijah. So First Kings chapter 19. So Elijah has like this big victory against the prophets of Baal, right? And it's amazing what he does through the power of God, right? But then here come old crazy Jezebel, and she make one comment. You didn't just did all of this stuff in the name of the Lord, and one person comes along and derails you. And what does Elijah do? He runs away. He starts talking to God about unaliving him, right? And then he collapsed under the exhaustion. So here's that fatigue in the faith, but not a I don't believe anymore, right? Not trying to make light of it, but Elijah needed a Snickers and a nap. That's really what he needed. But Elijah didn't lose his power. He just lost his strength. And even in that, like, he needed to take a nap and like go sit down somewhere and get his thoughts together. And sometimes it takes that. It takes us stepping away from the situation to regather some strength. That's why it's funny, because the enemy will try to keep you away from people, try to keep you isolated, try to make you believe that you are like the only person that is experiencing this, or like God's trying to punish you or something like that. And he pulls you away from all the spaces that would fuel you and give you the strength or replenish the strength that you need in order to continue in this faith journey. And that's basically what Elijah's fear and what Jezebel said actually did to him. It made him run. He ran away and hid in a cave. Like, where else on the planet can you be more isolated except for at the bottom of the sea? And though I believe that God would have given him the ability to breathe underwater, that's not what he decided to do. He decided to go hide in a cave. So basically, Elijah had a spiritual crash out, right? Have you, and y'all can say this in the comments, have you ever had a moment where you had like a really high spiritual moment and then all of a sudden you had like a humongous crash out afterwards? I can't say that I have. I've had moments where God has done something amazing, and then here come that old sneaky devil trying to make me crash out. But I've never had something so high and then something so low at that point. So I can't say that I have, not to say that anybody else hasn't. But again, faith fatigue is not faith failure. When Elijah ran away, it's not saying that he lost faith or he didn't continue to have the power that God gave him. It's just he started being goofy and went to go crash out in a cave. Okay? Thank you guys for understanding where I'm going. So let's talk about what drains us really. What drains your faith the most? Is it waiting? Is it the waiting portion? Is it the church hurt? Is it carrying everyone else's problems? Is it unanswered prayers? Is it life stress? Is it some emotional pull that you have within a situation? Like for me, I can check off like 3 of those things on the list. Like the waiting season, I can say carrying other people's issues and problems, and just the stress of life. Like I can say those are the things that drain me the most. And the fact that I choose to be busy. And I think part of that is like growing up in church, especially being a single woman. Like they tell you, oh, well, your single season should be like the busiest season of your life. Like that's, you're single. That means you can focus solely on ministry. But we never talked about like having a life with that too. Like it was always, you got to be in church all the time. Not like, yes, you should be active in ministry, but you should also live at the same time. And I had to deal with that for a while, where I felt like when I did something for myself, or I like would want to do something for myself or like treat myself, like I felt bad about it because I felt like, well, I really should be like, doing something church related, like youth ministry, young adult ministry, doing something at the church, being a part of the intercessors, doing something. Like it wasn't about taking care of me. It was about, I need to be working, like kingdom work, right? So we we bless the Lord for new information, right? And new stuff. So thank you guys for answering. Somebody says church hurt. Kevin says, okay. You forgot that you went to church. That's a serious situation. So let's talk about, as we transition, why faith gets tired. So I have, and this isn't all of them, but these are just three causes that I have found. Um, and this is somewhat from personal experience and some from just talking to people about the topic, um, and why faith gets tired. So the biggest one is going to be the waiting period. So we talk about my timing ain't God's timing, right? And we talk about God's timeline, not my timeline. He his timeline better than mine, right? However, waiting seasons wear down emotional energy. And sometimes in these spaces that we are in, a lot of our emotional self is invested in this. And yes, Sean, you hit it on the head. Why is our waiting season like a hard thing? Is because we're impatient. Like everything about life now is so much about instant gratification. When I first got into youth ministry, I talked about the microwave effect and how people used to cook all the time. Like you would come home and parents cooked, right? Sunday dinner was the big meal, but then, Monday through Friday and Saturday, you still got home cooked meals. And then the invention of the microwave comes and it changes how people prepare meals, right? So now, instead of you having to wait 2 hours for a meal, you might be able to get a meal on the table in like 3 minutes because they came up with these microwavable meals. And you get the Hungry Man meals. And when we were kids, we were latchkey kids. So then I could come home and make macaroni and cheese, or oodles and noodles was my thing when we were growing up. Like I could put it in the microwave and have something to eat in like 2 minutes. So it changed the dynamics of how people prepare meals. You got microwavable rice now. You have vegetables that you can steam in your microwave. So those moments of waiting for a home cooked meal, having to wait an hour, you may not have to wait an hour now. You may wait 25 minutes because I can stick everything in the microwave. So the impatience of it is what competes with the waiting season. Faith is powerful, but waiting can be exhausting. Any of you ever had to catch public transportation or ever had to wait for somebody to come pick you up? Like sometimes the waiting process is excruciating, especially when it's someplace you want to go. I can remember in high school, like those trips that you used to go on or prepare for. The moments where we went to like King's Dominion, or in my day it was called Wild World. Some of you may know it as Six Flags Great Adventure. It's not there anymore, but I digress. Waiting for that day to come to get on the bus to go, it's the excitement that builds up, and you just waiting, and it seems like days take forever before you get to that day to go on that trip. That's the exhausting part. It's not the fact that I know I'm going because I bought my ticket. It's the fact that it's Tuesday and I gotta wait till next Friday in order for us to go on the trip. So there have been moments in my life where I've had very long prayer seasons. Where you just had to wait. I would talk to God every day about something and hoping that it would happen tomorrow or happen the next day. And you come back and do the same thing. You pray and you hope that it happens tomorrow or the next day. The woman with the issue of blood, 12 years. 12. I had tumor on my cervix one time, and for those of you that have menstrual cycles, Usually your menstrual is like 7 days. Try bleeding for 45 days straight. Like no stop. 45 straight days, right? Talk about waiting to figure out what's going on, or having a period of waiting where in that particular situation I was waiting for it to stop. And here is this woman who has had the same issue day in and day out for 12 whole years. That is, or could be, a very exhausting waiting period. So Proverbs 13 and 12 says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. So we can be in a space of waiting, and what waiting does in testing of our faith, in some instances, it can make us feel like the waiting period is draining our faith. You can pray for a month and be gung-ho about what it is that you're praying for and you really believe in, and all of these things, but then comes that next 30 days, and then it's 90 days, and then you're at a year and that prayer hasn't been answered. And then here it goes 5 years and you still praying the same thing, and you're waiting for God to answer that prayer. And here it is 10 years and you're still praying that same prayer. For some of us, that can be exhausting. Okay. Sarah and Abraham, another example. So how many years did Abraham wait for the promised son, the promised seed? They waited so long that when it actually came, after Sarah put her hands in it and tried to make it happen, because again, impatient, when it actually happened, or they were being told that it happened rather, that she laughed. I don't know if I've ever gotten to a point where I waited for something so long that when God told me it was coming, that I laughed at it. That's a shift, or a indicator. That's a better word. An indicator of where she was emotionally in that space of her faith, and in the level of fatigue she was experiencing because of how long she was waiting, right? So we can pull from that even people with promises can get exhausted. And I can't imagine that God would look at us funny because we have a moment of fatigue, or even several moments of it. The great thing about God is that he always gives us a way to get back, right? To be able to get back on the right track and get back in the right space and the frame of mind to continue to allow patience to do her work, right? So point number 2 in this space. So you have waiting too long. The number 2 as to why our faith can get tired is always being the strong one. So as the oldest of 2, and I have said this out loud, I really dislike being the responsible kid, because sometimes being responsible, there's a weight that comes to it. Not a W-A-I-T, but a W-E-I-G-H-T. And sometimes being the strong one and dealing with the same issues all the time can get tiring. There are certain things and certain times I just want to hit people in their kneecaps, and maybe that'll help them to get their life together. And then sometimes it just isn't. Some of us are the friends to everybody, and because of that, we are the friend that everybody calls when they need prayer or when they need help. And then when it's our turn as the strong one and we reach out to help, it seems like, or can appear to be, that nobody asks how we're doing, or nobody is available when I need help. And that feeling can crouch in and make us feel exhausted from always doing for other people, right? So it's like it's like who we carry other people, but who carries us? So Courtney says, I feel you on that, Chris. The strong ones need someone too. Yes. And sometimes I don't necessarily, as a strong person, like need another strong person. I just need somebody to recognize that, like, I just need a moment for real. So, being the strong one, Romans 15:1. We who are strong ought to bear the failings of the weak. So, we're saying in this space, but who carries the strong people? Right? So, let's talk about one of my favorite biblical characters, Moses. And I just saw, I went to Sight and Sound last weekend. Shout out to New Creation Christian Church for the bus trip. We went to Sight and Sound to go see Joshua. And they started Joshua's story at the Red Sea, right? So they go through the Red Sea and they get into the wilderness, and they're doing the we're in the wilderness 40 years montage, right? And you hear all of, and this part struck me so much because it's so accurate. Like, they're going through all of the complaining that the Israelites did while they were in the wilderness. Like, here it is, God then gave you manna from heaven, and he then gave you quail, and your clothes and your shoes not falling apart, and all these things, and you still complaining about something. Moses go up on the mountain and go get some stuff for y'all to actually become a nation, become God's people. Y'all still mad, and y'all making calves and all this other kind of stuff because y'all need a God that's tangible that you need to be able to see. So y'all doing all of this complaining. And Moses is supposed to be the one that's supposed to endure all of that complaining, plus the weight of what God was doing through him for the people, and being the person that God orchestrated and used to deliver Israel from Egypt and to lead them into the promised land. So they get to the point where they get back to where Jethro was, his father-in-law, and they're getting to the point where they have to Moses is doing everything. He's not only leading the people, but he is judge and jury for like the petty stuff that they have to deal with, because it's hundreds of thousands of people, right? And of course, everybody not going to see eye to eye. People going to do stupid stuff, and you got to have some level of judiciary in order to like work through stuff. So Jethro sees that Moses is doing all of this, and Jethro basically says to him, like, bruh, this is Exodus 18 if you need a biblical reference. Like, you can't keep doing this. You're going to run yourself ragged if it's all on you. The strong one, right? You have to get some people that you trust in order to let them handle this stuff, and you just handle the major stuff, the bigger stuff. So as leaders, and this is what I take from it, as leaders, we can have a tendency to overload ourselves, and sometimes it's to our own detriment. Like, well, I'm just going to do it because me giving it to somebody else, they're not going to do it the way that I need for them to do it. And that's not accurate. When you pass stuff on to people, you have to trust and believe that the gifts that they have within them, and if they are people who have worked underneath of you or part of your ministry, that they are folks that, you know, have worked with you. They know how you do things. They've been trained under you or under leadership. So they're going to be able to handle it. Everybody's not going to do it the exact way that you're going to do it. And I had to learn that for myself, because I would not give stuff to people because I knew they wouldn't do it the way that I would do it. And I was overloading myself for no reason. So it was moments where I got sick, um, moments where, I'm eating myself out of house and home because I'm stressed, all of this stuff. So sometimes we're the strong people because we have to be, and then sometimes we're strong people because we choose to be. And in that strength, sometimes we can fatigue our own faith because we too busy trying to do instead of giving it to somebody so that we can get what it is that we need in order to strengthen our faith to get through whatever the period of waiting that we're dealing with. Okay. So let's talk about the last one in this space, and it is carrying too much, which kind of leads from that second one. Sometimes we're exhausted because we're trying to control the outcome. All right. Matthew 11, 28 through 30 basically says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened." So if you got a good Bible, that's in red because that's what Jesus said, right? So faith gets tired when we start carrying things God never asked us to hold. That's a drop the mic moment right there. Have you ever had a moment where God tried to tell you, like, I didn't tell you to do that, or I didn't ask you to carry that, or I didn't tell you to do that, and you still holding on to it and he trying to take it away from you? I know if my mother was on this right now, she'd be like, "Kristen, you talking to yourself. You know that, right?" Super funny. If Jesus is offering us rest, that means we were never meant to carry everything. And I think some of us need to recognize that we carry stuff that God never really intended for us to carry anyway. We are supposed to be able to lay all of our cares at the feet of Jesus. So if God's telling us, or Jesus is saying to us, that he doesn't want us to be burdened with stuff, that he is offering us rest, if we are also saying that the Lord is telling us to lay our burdens and all of our cast our cares on him, which also means that we're not supposed to be carrying stuff, why do we continue to carry it? And I don't know if that's a question that we could really, like, it's so much to unpack in that, but it's a viable question to ask. Like, you have to look at some of the things that you are like praying for, some of the things that you're waiting for, and try to figure out too, where are you carrying the things in that situation that God never asked you to carry? He's asking you to come and talk to him about it. He's asking you to lay the stress of it on him, but he's not asking you to carry the weight of it, if that makes sense to you. Okay. So we have to learn to discard some things for ourselves. So here's my question. Are you usually the strong one for the other people? So are all the people in my chat right now, are you guys all the strong people? Or are you the people who reach out to the strong people? I know for me, I'm the strong person, but I also am a person who reaches out to strong people. When I survey a lot of the people that I confide in when I'm having these moments of where I feel like my faith is running thin, or I feel like I'm fatigued in the spiritual place, the folks that I lean to are all older and have had some really serious faith moments. And my spiritual parents are like gems of people, right? But they're pastors, so they pastor in a lot of people. So I go to them, but I don't go to them all the time, right? I have who I call my inner circle. And my inner circle of people are the people that I go to. They know just about everything about me. Just about everything. Um, so when I have moments where I'm like, Lord, I don't know what to do, I'll go to them and be like, look, so I'm in this space and here's what's happening. And I've been praying and I've been asking and it just feels like God is ignoring me. Or in my meta mind, I believe that God watches a lot of TV. And I have a particular channel and God turns to my channel when I'm talking to him, and when I keep saying the same thing over and over again, he turns the channel. That's just how I that's just how I think in my mind, right? I know that's not really how it happens, but that just in my mind is how it worked, right? So when I tell people, when I tell my inner circle, look, I think God changed the channel on me today, like, it allows them to then pour into me. So, they have, just a richer level of wisdom than what I have in my current moment. So Courtney says that she's always the strong person. Viva says it depends on what the issue is. Um, and here's one. And Courtney, I can kind of like your comment here resonates a lot with me. She says I have trouble reaching out when I need help because I've been let down so many times when I did, and I just keep it to myself. And I've been there before where I have reached out to ask for help, and at times I still have an issue with it. When it comes to manual labor, like, I really hate to do it, but I hate to ask people too, because that's a space where people have let me down. Like when I moved here, yeah, you got to put furniture together when you move. Like you take stuff apart and you got to put it back together. And I really suck at that. That's why I want to get one of the reasons why it never mind. Um, like I'm handy. Like I'm handy. But again, you get tired. I have moved y'all several times. Okay, cross country. I can't tell you how many times I have had to put my bed together. How many times I have a metal box spring. How many times I've had to take that box spring apart and take a picture of it so I can remember how to put it back together. Okay. So when I moved here, I was like, hey, I called somebody and I was like, hey, I really need some help. Like, would you mind helping me put my bed and my bed frame together? Sure. I'll be over. Hour go past, don't come. 2 hours go past, don't come. Let me text like, hey, when are you coming? Oh, I'm be on my way in like half an hour. Half an hour. I'm still waiting for them to come and help me put my mattress together or my box spring together. Granted, I did it already, but y'all know what I'm saying. So I get what you're saying, Courtney, in the you've been let down so many times that you don't reach out. But what I'll say to that to counteract it is, are you reaching out to the right people? And that's the piece that I had to learn is there are some people that no matter how many times I ask, no matter how great they say, how cool we are, how great of friends we are, they just are never going to show up. And then there's a core group of people that I have that I have never had to say anything. They say, Chris, what do you need? And those are the folks that I go to when I need help because I know they'll help me. Now, everybody got life. Everybody has a life. So sometimes when I call, they might be at work. They might got other things on their plate. They may not be able to help me right then and there. But the difference is that they'll say, Chris, I can't help you today, but I got some free time on Tuesday. If that'll help you, I can come Tuesday and do it. Great. Come Tuesday, because I promise you, I'm gonna sleep on this mattress on the floor until somebody come help me on Tuesday because I'm not putting this thing together. But yeah, so it's about asking the right people versus just asking everybody, right? All right. So, yes. All right, let's move on to this next segment. So, even Jesus rested, right? So, I talk about, yes, that too, Kevin. You gotta make the call first. Most definitely, gotta reach out. So here's the moment, right? If Jesus rested, why don't we? If God took 6 days to create this wonderful planet that we live on, and he created a space and then created the things that go into the space, why is it that we feel like we gotta go on 900 every single day? Okay. Jesus, when you look at his ministry, he had moments where he withdrew himself from the crowd. He had moments where he rested. He had moments where he slept. And he had moments where he prayed by himself. So sometimes we expect ourselves to run harder than even Jesus did. And I don't even know why we like that. Because if we supposed to be Christ-like, why we not following Christ's example, right? Jesus was asleep during a storm. A storm, yo. Like, he was on a boat. And the boat, I can only imagine. So, let's paint the visual, right? It's a storm. We not talking about wild waves in the wild pool. We talking about a genuine storm. Like rains came, winds blew, water choppy, all that stuff. And they wasn't on no Princess cruise ship. You talk about a fishing boat that they was in, trying to cross the sea, right? And Jesus is asleep. Some of us got motion sickness and can't sleep in nothing like that, right? Jesus was asleep in the storm, and he got the power to calm the storm. So he rested. We have the power within us to quench some of this stuff that we be dealing with, and we would rather push ourselves and run ourselves ragged than to take a cue from Jesus and sit and be still and just rest. And here's the thing, your faith tells you that God can. You resting says, I believe that he will. And that's the shift. The shift is not allowing our impatience, not allowing our fear, not allowing the uncertainty of the next moment to then cause us to run our faith ragged to the point where we say, I'm tired of waiting. Right? So, Mark 6:31 says, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. And then the storm that I was talking about, Mark 4:38, that's when Jesus was sleeping in the storm. So if Jesus has the power to calm the storm and he still chooses to sleep in it, why can't we? Right? Here is another moment. The shortest scripture in the Bible is what? Jesus wept. John 11:35. Jesus didn't rush past the emotion of the moment. He took a minute. He honored how he was feeling. And then he moved to do what he knew he could do. And that too sometimes allows us to be fatigued in our faith. It's just a level of emotion. Like, we are such emotional creatures. And I'm not saying that it's gender based. I'm just saying that we people are emotions. Like, we are a triune being. Like, we are spirit first, because that's the real part of us. In order for us to function on earth, we live in a body. It's the earth suit that we live in. And we have a soul. It is our mind, our will, our intellect, and our emotions. And in that, sometimes, instead of us allowing the spirit to take control, in the situation, in the prayer, in the waiting, in the faith fight. We let our emotions do all of the conversing. We let our emotions take over. And that too, though it wasn't on my list, that's something else that can cause our faith to fatigue. Emotions, man, make you be exhausted. Like, I hate to use this as an example, but I'm finna use it because a lot of us have experienced it. If you ever been in a really long relationship or a really intense relationship, and then you break up, the emotional drain from the breakup, listen, it's crazy. Okay? And sometimes that emotional drain can make you respond and react in ways that are just unbecoming of who you are. It causes you to be a different person. You agitated and irritated, and all men is dogs, and women ain't this, and women lie, and we just, you saying wild stuff and doing wild things because your emotions is what's in control at the moment. So again, in this space, yes, recognize the emotion. Yes, deal with it, but don't let it overtake you, right? And that's what Jesus didn't do in that moment. He grieved the fact that Lazarus had died, but Lazarus had been dead 4 days already. Jesus didn't cry 15 more days because he was late showing up, right? He cried in the moment, processed, then said, all right, let's do what we came here to do. So still, in your faith walk with your emotions, yes. And I'll use me as an example. In my recent health challenge, right? Part of the process is knowing what could happen if the test results came back unfavorable, and what the treatment steps were. And the two treatment steps, there were only two options that were available, was radiation and then hysterectomy. And either of those processes, well, one of them would have made it even more difficult for me to not only conceive but to hold a pregnancy for any length of time, and then having a hysterectomy would completely take away those chances of me giving birth naturally, right? So did I have a moment where I grieved that process? Yes. Yes, I had a serious moment where I grieved, because this is something that I've wanted for a very long time. It's something that I've prayed about for a really long time. It is a dream that I have had for a very long time. So coming to a space where the finality of that and not being able to tangibly have that, I had a come to Jesus moment where I had to say, okay, I don't really understand what's happening, but if this is going to be what the outcome is going to be, I have to be okay with that, and knowing that this just wasn't the way that God intended me to have kids. Like, that wasn't ever in the plan, right? And I had to get to a point where I had to grieve that ability to have kids so that I could get to what was coming next, and to be able to have the faith to go through this, knowing not only he can, but that he would, right? So yes, we're going to have emotions. Yes, sometimes they're going to be uncomfortable, and yes, it isn't going to be great all the time, but those emotions don't have to make us get to a point where we run our faith ragged, right? So Courtney says, when you try to rest and let someone else do the work, you wind up having to do it yourself anyway. How do you just say, forget it? It is what it is. So that comes into knowing, like, you gotta know what people can and cannot do. So I'll use my box spring as an example. I have a metal box spring, right? The reason I bought the metal box spring is because I didn't know where I was going to land. I had moved to Colorado, but the position or the things that they told me that I was going to be doing meant that I might have to move somewhere else. And I'm not doing this wooden box spring every time I get ready to move, because then I put my stuff in storage and I got to find a place to live, or I got to find a place to stay, or I got to stay at a hotel for months on end and all this other kind of stuff. So I found a metal box spring. The only bad thing about this metal box spring is that it's got 900 pieces to it. I'm exaggerating, but you get what I'm saying. Like, it's got the frame, and then it's got crossbars for the frame, and then it's got pieces that you have to sit in it, in order for you to have the lats that come across, and then you got to screw those in. It's complicated, right? When I moved to Colorado and I got it for the first time, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I needed somebody else to come put this thing together. And yes, my coworker came. He put it together. The first time it was wrong. He came back and said, okay, I'm going to fix it. So he came back, took it all apart. We couldn't read the instructions because the instructions were in another language. We tried that whole Google Translate stuff. It just didn't work out. So we trying to put it together based on the pictures. And the second time, he put it together wrong. So when he said, Chris, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do it, I was like, don't worry about it. I'll just do it myself. What happens? I did it and I frustrated myself. If he'd have just came back that one more time, maybe we would have got it right that last time. However, he ended up coming back and doing it right, but this is 4 times now. So yeah, sometimes people do what you've asked them to do, they do it incorrectly. However, you have to be able to have a little bit of patience, give people a little bit of grace. They want to help. So instead of just them putting it together, like, help them put it together, so that way you don't have to put it together by yourself. They don't have to put it together wrong, and you might get it done the first time. So then you don't have to worry about it, and then you don't have to be frustrated like, I shouldn't have called them in the first place because I still had to do it myself. Don't overexert yourself. No, Kevin, it was not from IKEA. It was actually from Amazon. But it was one of those things that came from another company. So they were selling it on Amazon. So, it came in a really tall box. And I missed that portion of it. Not that I thought that it came put together already. I just didn't expect it to have so many parts. Because the second one that I bought, the one that I have now, it has swing bars. So, because the one that I bought originally, it rusted. I've lived a lot of places, and a lot of those places, the storage places, weren't temperature controlled. But that's neither here nor there. So now it's got the long parts, and it's got some lats that come across, but a lot of it is like you've unfolded and folded. So this one's a lot better, and I didn't have to ask nobody to come in and do that. I did it myself this one time. So getting close, y'all. This is the last segment for this is, so what do we do when our faith is tired? I'm not going to have this whole conversation and not give you guys some solutions on what to do when our faith gets into these spaces and moments where we feel like giving up, or we feel like not only throwing in the towel, but throwing it at somebody, right? So first thing is something that I say we should be doing anyway. And it's because he already know what's going on. But be honest with God. God, I still believe, but I'm tired. Like, I still believe, but it's been a long time. Like, Lord, it's been 10 years. Lord, it's been 20 years. I'm not saying that God need a reminder, but sometimes you need to say it out loud so you get over it. And then sometimes you need to say it out loud to say, God, I've been faithful. Help me, right? So Psalms 13, 1 through 2, the gist of it is Lord, how long? And saying that is not doubting, but it's just genuine, honest conversation and honest faith moments. I am a very transparent person. And I'm transparent about the things that I go through because at the end of the day, I want somebody to be able to look at my life and just like me, to tangibly be able to see the things that God has done in my life and allow that to cause them to want to know more about Christ, want to know more about God, want to know more about how I get through it so that it opens that door. But I can't do that without being honest about my faith walk and my faith journey. So some people are like, Kristen, you tell too much, and for them that may be it. But for the folks that I am targeting, it's just what they need to know. It's just what they need to hear. I'm not divulging, information that's necessarily detrimental to me, but being open and being transparent and being honest with God is where it all starts. God already know it. He heard you when you was zapping out. You wasn't talking to him, but you was talking out loud. He know it because you thought it. So just tell him at that point. What you finna do? It's not like you can hide it. Just tell him, right? Look at David. Now, David, I love David. Because David has some questionable moments. Some questionable moments, right? But the thing that I love about David, and when you go back and you read Psalms, you see those moments and you see those honest moments where not only did David question God, not only did he cry out to God in those moments where he questioned God, but you still see the fact that David believed that God was going to do it. And that's the key. It's not just the fact that he cried out. It's not just the fact that he questioned God, because Job did the same thing. Job got to a point where he was so exhausted in what he was dealing with. He questioned God, but Job was ready to give up. However, after God put him in his place for a second, then Job was like, all right, yo, whatever you're going to do and however you're going to do it, I'm going to trust and believe that you got it, right? So you can question God and still be connected to him. I know some people believe that you should not question God, and I'm not a part of that same school of thought. Like, if I don't ask God the question, I'm not going to know the answer, right? And if I ask God the question, he's either going to direct me to the answer in his word, or he going to put somebody in my path that's going to answer the question for me. So I'd rather ask the question and get God to answer it instead of making up my own answer and push myself away from him. So, let's not do that. We want to allow God to restore us. So going back to the Elijah example, right? So again, Elijah did this great thing against the prophets of Baal. Here come Jezebel. She comes, say one thing like, homeboy, if you come back up here, I'm fitting to unalive you, right? He goes and hides in the cave or whatever. Like I said, y'all laughed at me because I said that all Elijah needed was a Snickers. But he did. He needed food, he needed rest, and he didn't need a lecture. Like, he just needed a moment. And once he got that moment, like, he was back together. God didn't rebuke Elijah for running. God restored Elijah so that he could get back to the purpose that God had in store for Elijah and the reason that he called Elijah, right? Okay. Uh change the rhythm, right? I'm trying to find a really good way to say this. Sometimes we make our prayer time like the movie or like how we believe prayer is supposed to be. Prayer is simply a conversation between you and God. Sometimes that conversation is a long one, and sometimes it don't got to be that long. It ain't got to be that in depth. It ain't got to be so proper. Um, sometimes it don't need that. So sometimes maybe you need slower moments, moments where you're not necessarily talking to God, but you're waiting for God to talk to you. There have been moments where I have sat in my prayer closet and I ain't said two words to the Lord, but He did a whole lot of talking to me. And it was in those moments where I felt the most dry that He did that for me. Sometimes I needed more activity. Sometimes because life be lifing, I wasn't really reading the way I should have. Not saying that I wasn't reading, but I think sometimes we read to check off the box versus reading for the actual nourishment that we need from it. And I think because of that, we get into these moments where we get dry. And we get into these moments where our faith becomes tiresome because we're not nourished the way that we should be. So, it's like when you're trying to lose weight, and I need for God to stop using examples in my life right now. When you're trying to lose weight and you don't eat enough protein, your body can't do all the things it needs to do in order to help you lose the weight if you don't give your body the fuel it needs in order to help you lose the weight. If that makes sense, right? So sometimes you may need slower moments and you may need deeper intimacy. When you think about a relationship, right? You think about the moments that matter the most in your relationship. It's not the necessarily going out to dinner. It's not necessarily the movies. It's the moments where the intimacy speaks the loudest. And we're not even talking about sex. We're talking about intimacy. Sometimes it's just fuel for me is holding my hand. Fuel for me is hugging me a little longer than just the general hello hug. Fuel for me is laying your head on my shoulders or letting me lay my head on your shoulders. It's the battery. It's the thing that allows me to be charged, to recharge. And sometimes we're doing things to check off a box. Okay, I got up this morning, I prayed, check the box. After I prayed, I read my Bible, check the box. I turned on my worship music, check the box. It's more of a list than getting into the intimacy of the relationship that we should have with our Savior. And that sometimes can cause us to be malnourished. Okay. My last point is to lean on others. Galatians 6:2 talks about us carrying the burdens of others, right? Faith was never meant to be carried alone. We need each other in order for us to be able to walk, this as the old people say, this Christian journey. Our faith walk is not a walk we can do by ourselves. One of my our church's kind of slogan or mantra, I guess, is for us not to do life alone. And in that space that we don't do life alone, it allows us to be able to build our faith with each other. In those moments where, I'm struggling, somebody else who's gone through something similar or had a moment of some uncertainty, seeing that uncertainty in me can pray for me, or they can make themselves available so that I can lean on them in the moments that I'm having some struggles or some things like that. So we have to get to a point where we have the ability to lean on other people. And again, I'm not saying that you lean on everybody, because every tree branch ain't safe. So some people want to put themselves in there because they nosy and they try and get in your business. I'm not saying that you need to get across the pulpit and tell everybody what's going on, but again, allow God to show you people that you can lean on. I'm gonna go back to Sean's comment, because he said it when he was on my show, and he said it in our group chat too. Like, thank God for godly friends, and I thank God for the unlikely godly friends, because those are the ones that come in clutch. Those are the ones that I didn't know I needed. Those are the ones that I don't think I would have reached out to or befriended, because there's just some spaces and some places that we're very different. They're all in the group in the chat right now, so I can talk about them. I have a group of friends that we all watch wrestling, right? And when I tell you, I probably, if it had not been for my friend Kevin, I probably would not be in the group chat. Besides the fact that he's the creator of the group chat, I don't think I would have been in the group chat. Not because I don't like wrestling, not because I don't like people. It's just not something that I thought I needed or would have done. I would not have sought out a wrestling chat for me to be able to talk to people. Number one, I was just getting back into wrestling. So it was a lot of story, a lot of stuff that I just had not been privy to, because I hadn't watched it since the Attitude Era, and that was the 90s. So those people on there, I'm like, who is that? Who is this? What? Why they name like just a lot of questions? And I am super appreciative of the chat, because the chat don't make me feel, most of the time, like I'm an outsider, or like, Chris, that's a stupid question. Like, why would you ask that? But they have also become I didn't say that for that, sir, but yes, thank you. Now you made me lose my train of thought. Thank you, Lord. They don't make me feel weird. They don't make me like, when I don't know something, how you with people and you don't know something, and sometimes they do the nice nasty kind of situation where you don't know that. Let me tell you what you should know. They don't do that. They very easily explain stuff to me. We watch these big old PLEs, and half of the time I don't understand what's supposed to be going on or what the rules are. So I'd be like, well, somebody tell me why they in the cage, or why they in the rooms, or just whatever. And somebody very, very nicely will say, Chris, this is what's happening. And I'd be like, oh, okay, great. But they are also really good people that I can go to when I have other issues. I've had some relationship issues. I've had some self-esteem issues. And these guys have just been like the piece that I needed in that moment. So I'm super grateful at the fact that they all love the Lord, because these are my good godly friends. And I have other friends. They aren't the only ones, but it just was a super tangible example right at the moment. So yeah, you gotta let other people help you, carry you spiritually, all of those things. So here's my question before we get into our last portion of our show, is what helps you recharge your faith? So let me give you some examples of what could. Um, Worship can help you to recharge your faith. Quiet time. And when I say quiet time, I don't mean quiet time with your cell phone. I mean sitting in the quiet, nothing else going on, but just sitting in the quiet for a moment. Okay? Scripture can help to recharge your faith. Conversation can help to recharge your faith, and rest can help you recharge your faith. And sometimes some other things are helpful. When I was away from home, I did a lot of painting. When I was away from home, I did a lot of writing. You know, those things, I don't know why my computer decided to jump. Those things help to recharge me spiritually. And I am super grateful that I had the ability to be able to do those. What helps to recharge you? You can drop it in the chat. I'll put some of those up when I see them. This is last scripture for the evening, Isaiah 40:29-31. The piece that I want to draw out is that he gives strength to the weary. So in the moments where we feel like our faith is fatigued, or we are fatigued in this faith journey, reaching out to the Lord really does help us, because he then in turn gives us strength to get through and to carry on in the faith journey. So don't allow yourself to be isolated. Don't allow yourself to feel like, oh, God ain't gonna do it, or he forgot about me, or anything like that. Like, that's the furthest thing from the truth. It's just you're in your period of waiting, and sometimes that waiting period is long, and sometimes that waiting period is to fortify you. So once God does do it, it's not about the doctor, it's not about the medication, it's not about the surgery. It's about God really did do it, and he did it because he said he would do it. Okay. If your faith feels tired, it doesn't mean that you don't have any faith. It just might mean that it's a part of us in our human condition. As spiritual beings, I think our spirit life is very different from our human existence. This flesh causes us to respond and react very differently than it would if we were just in our glorified bodies, or if we were just spirits, period. But here's the piece that I want to leave with you, is that even though you may be tired in your faith, you still have faith. And that's the important part. Okay? Amen. So let's do our sip and spill segment. Hopefully y'all are still out there, so that we could do it. So we just talked about this one. I didn't realize that I put this in there and then asked the question out loud. What helps you to recharge spiritually? We just talked about that. So here's a question that I will leave with you. It is a reflective question for you to think about. And my charge to you would be for you to write down the answer to this question. What has been draining your faith lately? And once you come up with that list, it's a good list to take into your prayer space. It's a good list to be able to find places that you can unload things. If you're doing too much, then you can start to look at ways of getting some stuff off your plate. No is a full sentence. So sometimes you have to say no. Sometimes you have to say no, and that's for you. So really, Kevin, I'm not putting that up there. Um Sometimes you have to take control of what you're supposed to be doing for you. So you have to be able to say no to some things so that you don't overload yourself, right? I don't care if you put happy smiley faces in it. I'm y'all see that comment. I'm not putting that in there. So here are some things that people said helps them to recharge spiritually. So Courtney said prayer and reading my Bible, listening to gospel music. Sean said praise music. I don't know what this was for, but we are the world. I don't know. Yes, life just life, and sometimes these days are very hard. Yes. So this is probably the question to what drains you spiritually. And y'all see Kevin's two comments. I'm not putting them up there. I don't give people. I ain't giving nobody no extra time that don't need no extra time. So there you go. Yes, dear. Just say no. Well, yeah. We gonna take that comment offline. Um. So, so hopefully this didn't seem like I was preaching a sermon. Hopefully it seemed very conversational, but this is kind of like the vibe of where we're going this year, or this season, I should say. I really want to have some hard conversations and some moments where we do things a little differently. So I hope you learned something. I hope you gained some tools this evening. I hope you share this with someone that you may think might need a little spiritual boost, or might be struggling in whether or not they still have the space and the capacity to continue to believe. I'm glad you go to your quiet space, Kevin. That's a good thing. Our next episode, I was supposed to have this stuff up, but I never do. For our next show, will be in a couple weeks. Resurrection Sunday is coming. So I hope you guys are planning and preparing. Yes, and this is why I love you, Sean. Thank you. Hope y'all are ready for the resurrection. Like, I get excited about resurrection. Lord, help me with my tongue. Resurrection Sunday, because it's always the great reminder of what Jesus went through for us. It's amazing to think about, his last week, and what he was preparing for. And I don't really know if, knowing that I'm facing this, like, that's why I say I'm happy Jesus did it. Because I don't know if I would have the fortitude to be able to do it. And then knowing this Judas, whose name was Judas, traveling with me the whole time, is the person who the enemy was going to use to, like, put me up there. Judas has got kicked in his kneecaps. I don't know why kicking people in their kneecaps is my thing lately, but it is. Thank you, Kevin. Thanks, Courtney. I'm glad you guys could come and be a part of it. Thank you for always being in the comments for me. Kevin, if you'll put in the comments what Two Fat Guys is doing and whose albums you got coming out, that would be great. Courtney, if you could drop in the chat when your show launches for me, so I can make sure that I let the people who are watching know that as well. Episode 3 is going to be Unlearning Survival Mode. So, kind of in this space, moving to the next level. Many of us have been in survival mode for such a long time that we don't know that we're in survival mode. So we're going to not only be defining what survival mode is, but unlearning survival mode and how to come out of it. So if you would like to be a guest on that show, once I put out the announcement next week, you can you can respond to the all call for guests, and we can do that. Sean is available for all bookings. If you would like to have him on your show or part of your show, I'm quite sure that his people will call you. Well, Sean is his own people, so he'd be happy to be a part of the show. All right. So here we go with my friend Kevin. So yes, it is WrestleMania season. So we are officially on the road to WrestleMania, which is April 18th and 19th. So they're getting ready for WrestleMania. One Mind Productions, which is Kevin's company, that he releases all this wonderful music and all of these albums. If you have not listened to anything that Kevin has had a hand in producing, you are missing the boat. My favorite artist, of course, Mr. Raheem Anderson, has a new album that's going to be coming out called Studio Sessions. So you know I can't wait. Rose's album is out. He's got a plethora of genre of music. Corey Anders just had an album not too long ago that came out. So go to the Two Fat Guys podcast site. You can find them on Facebook. I've been tagged them in a number of things, so you can scroll through mine and search Two Fat Guys podcast, like all of that, to be able to see some of their shows, as well as you can befriend Kevin and you can see the album stuff. Courtney is starting her podcast called Erotic Night. So her debut podcast, her opening show is May the 16th. So you'll see me post some stuff about that because I'm actually going to be on the show. And it's going to be exciting. So we celebrate our friend Courtney with that. Sean, I get excited. You are like solid, man. Like he made sure he was off for my show. And he did that when he was a guest on my show. So this is what I'm talking about. You got godly friends who support you in what it is that you do. Okay. Courtney also has a book with the same title, Erotic Nights, and that's coming out in December. My other friend who's not on here, like I push and promote everybody. My other friend, Brian Johnston, started another podcast. We not surprised, with his two daughters, Sanaa and Maya, called Dad Stop Talking. They had their debut episode about a week ago. It is hilarious. So I'll be able, I'm just going to drop links for everybody in a post. So y'all that just gave me stuff, drop some links for me. Actually send them to me so I can post them at the end of the show. I can post them in my thank you for watching the show. That's what I meant to say. So that you guys can start subscribing and following and being a part of all that is going on. So I don't have anything else. Thank you guys again for watching the show. Thank you for those of you that'll see it on the rewatch. I enjoy having these Friday night conversations and all of these new things. So I'm glad that you're glad to come and watch and be a part of it. So we will see you guys on the next coffee and tea show. And that's all I got. All right, guys. See you later.